Hi everyone. I'm just got like a quick thought that I decided to share. I've been manifesting for a while, and yesterday I've been doing my like normal manifestation page or something, and I kind of noticed that when I was writing about I wanted or something like that, like I have. Um, I was like having an emotion and I had all those creative ideas about it and what is happening and all of it. But once I got to the point of having money, it had like no value, like no emotion actually. And so I've been thinking about it lately actually. So it's like all of the information coming together, and manifestation, it's important to not manifest money specifically because money itself like doesn't bring anything. So you should like remember that money is just like an exchange for something. So we should more likely focus on the what we want to exchange for it, which also is not always a point because we can get stuff not only through money, you can get stuff through a various different stuff and exchanges, and even for nothing is about possibilities in life. So money is not always the case, and money does not always, it's not something that brings happiness, because money at the end of the day is just like a paper, right? So just a paper with, doesn't have any value to us. The money itself, it has nothing. It's not a valuable. What is valuable is what we can be manifesting actual money, but more like the things we exchange it for. Or if we don't have anything specific in mind materialistically, we should focus more on the intention behind it, of what kind of feeling we have to get through it. Like for example, uh, you might want to have money because it makes you feel confident, or you want to have money free, or uh, like a luxurious, or like you can feel like calm or something like that. Doesn't matter, just anything you can think of, and then like focus more on that feeling and focus why is that, and what it would bring you, and how your life would look like when it comes to that. Because just imagining having in your hands the a piece of paper doesn't do anything. It's not bringing any kind of feeling specifically, right? Have money in our hands, we get excited because you're like, oh my god, like thanks, geez, like now I can buy this and this thing I wanted. So you're happy not because of money, but because of what you can get and exchange it for, right? So I feel like this is the important message that I wanted to share. Um, to not focus on money itself, but rather what we can get from it. So if you cannot imagine like something physical, just focus on the feeling that it brings you. Uh, what does it mean for you? Why do you want to have money in the first place, right? Because it's also important, like, do we just want to have it out of like beliefs or ideas? Because honestly, I don't think money is the key to happiness. Like sometimes it's just better to live in balance where we just have enough, and we don't have to like have all of the money in the world, right? Um, but yeah, I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say about this. It's just like a thought of inspiration that I wanted to share. Let me know if I should do more like videos like that out of inspiration. It's because sometimes I just have like those thoughts, and then I'm like, oh, I should record about this, and I never do it. Um, but yeah. I'm excited to add more. Um, so when it comes to the feelings about it, if you like try to think about what feeling it brings you to have money, you should like explore it more. Like for example, it's freedom for you. Like, uh, what does it mean for you to have this freedom? Is it about you having, for example, your own house? Is it about you not having to worry about bills, or is it you just wanting, for example, to travel or something like that? Because I feel like it's important that we understand that sometimes we mistake our goals uh, through how we get them. So we say, for example, yeah, I want to, for example, make music, but then we get like this idea like, hi, but like to make music I have to like equipment and everything, so I need money. So then you spend like your time, instead of pursuing your dream of music, you try to pursue the idea of getting the money. So you don't focus actually on your dream, but about the money. And the point is, not everything always has to be about money, and you can still do things without having money, or you can still, I believe in manifestation in a sense that if we have something in mind and we really want to do something, it's gonna come to us in any ways and form. It's about more of a creativity than something else, like money and stuff. It's not always about the equipment. It's not always about those stuff. Sometimes it's just purely about passion and just intention of doing something. Um, so I think like it's important that we focus on what we actually want instead of a thing that supposedly is supposed to get us there. Because money is not always the way to get something, and we just miss the whole point by focusing on the money, right? So I think like it's important to understand that the money is never the case with those stuff. It's just an exchange, but it's not the point. So it's important that because I know that some people can spend like their whole life uh, searching for something, and at the end of the day they are really disappointed because all their life they spent like chasing something that was supposed to get there, but once they have it, they understood that they are nowhere near that thing, because it was not the case. So also we have to understand, like, for example, if we want freedom, is really money that's gonna take us there? Or we have happiness, which is like, some people think like money is gonna bring them happiness or something like that. Or freedom, like they want freedom, they want independence, but then they spend all their life in job being on the complete opposite of freedom. And when I wake up a day and be like, what happened? How did they end up here? Or they want happiness, but at the end of the day, they spend all their lives working for that money that's supposed to bring them happiness, but at the end of the day, all they were doing is chasing money. Because they were focusing on getting money and not having money and not being able to pursue this thing because of money, right? So I think that's a very important thing to realize, so we don't get into that rabbit hole of chasing for something that is actually not the point of what we want, right? Um, it's also not always about the money. It's also about other things. For example, we search for happiness and we try to find it in different stuff like relationships, money, um, like small things like, oh, I will be happy once I get this score. I will be happy once I will be happy with my body. I will be happy once I will have a boyfriend. I will be happy once I will be rich or famous, or I will be stable, or I will move out, or you know stuff like that. Like, it's assigning our happiness to something specific, which is not the case. It's missing the whole point. Relationship, for example, is not about fulfilling us, about making us satisfied. It's like completely about something else. It's a completely different subject, but we use, for example, those kind of stuff to find validation also, and it's also psychological. Like, for example, we might feel insecure about ourselves, and then we get into the relationship and we constantly search for this validation in someone. Like, we search for them to validate us that we are enough, or that which is of course important, but sometimes it gets toxic in that sense. I mean, like, we put our whole validation and self-worth into a relationship, or really into anyone or anything, or for example success and work, and we kind of expect to be define our worth by how successful we are or stuff like that. And it's again missing the whole point, because those stuff has to be resolved in different way, in a inner way inside of us. It's not the point of gaining those kind of stuff. So when you're looking for some kind of feeling, because that's mostly what we are looking for. We are not always looking for a thing. For example, you wanna buy a skirt because you think it will make you happy, but actually you just wanna buy the skirt because you wanna feel good about your body. Um, it's just a meaning. It doesn't mean anything actually. You wanna, do something, but you mistake it with how to get there. You focus more on how to get there rather than the thing itself. And sometimes you get wrapped up in how to get there and the ways, and then we forget about where are we even going. Yeah. I don't know if I want to add something else. I thought I will also add an example of telekinesis, as I have some videos on my channel of telekinesis, so I also can see people using telekinesis as a way of validating themselves, as a way of validating their self-worth or their abilities and capabilities, and to make them feel a certain way. Some people use it as a way of making them feel like they are better than others, or just, like just simply validating themselves, or they are looking for a feeling. They are not looking for activity itself. They don't see in this activity what is it supposed to be about. They see in it a way of feeling a certain way. It's just another way for them, another path, another activity or thing that will make them feel a certain way. And you're gonna look for a lot of ways, but honestly, it's just escaping from things that has to be resolved inside of you, because it's constantly looking for validation, and unless you don't find those stuff inside of you, you will never kind of stop trying to find a way for validating yourself in that sense. And I don't think it's a way of living, because looking for like constant validation, of course, when it comes from your inside, from your insecurities and stuff. For example, it also comes a lot of times from trauma, of course. But for example, you might feel, for example, not satisfied with your body, or even less. Let's go deeper. You might not feel. You might get traumatized, and you don't feel good about yourself. You might feel worthless, or in a sense of your physical looks, because I don't know, someone told you something when you were younger, and then you start to transform it into the thoughts about your body, about your self-esteem, and when you start looking for validation. Of course, validation can go both ways. It's not always, oh, I try to look validation that I'm pretty. It also can work in a way of validating that I'm ugly or something like that, right? And it's not only about that. It's also pretty much the same with depression and stuff like that. You try to constantly validate that the life is pointless, or look for a way to basically reasons to why is it worthless, why it's not worth living, and all of it. So you either look for validation, and honestly, it's often both stuff. Like you constantly look for validation that you're either pretty or ugly, both at once. Depends on the situation, probably. I forgot where I was. What I was saying? Looking for validation. Yeah, so I feel like we often, for example, this person that has those self-esteem issues will look for like both ways for validating that they are ugly or that they are pretty. But honestly, it's mostly the validation based on beliefs. So if they believe they are ugly, they're gonna look for validation they are ugly. So actually, let me take that back. They look for validation for their beliefs. So they're gonna look for a validation that they are ugly. So they kind of will look for validation in a sense that they will ask someone if they are pretty, but actually they will only use it as a validation for them being ugly. So someone will say, oh, like you are pretty, kind of, and they'll be like, oh no, I'm fat and I'm bad and I'm bad, and they'll be like, no, you're pretty, it doesn't matter, and they'll be like, no, but that person told me, and that person told me, and and basically pointing out all the things that are bad about them. So when they get a compliment, they will basically try to argue with it, so just to validate their belief, Even if it doesn't make them feel good, they are still, because it's an ego thing. It's like feeding the ego, it's feeding the beliefs, and so they will basically feed the belief, validate the belief, uh, which is basically reflecting the insecurities, which of course can be toxic sometimes, um, but they are validating, and they will be doing a lot of things to, like, that's the point I'm actually trying to make. They will be trying to look for resources to make them feel better about themselves, or like more worse, you know. So people are looking like for a feeling to make them feel better about that stuff, which is complicated. Actually, I have to think more about it, because what I'm saying now is like basically talking out of my mind, like whatever comes. But that's interesting. The fact that we look for both validation, because for example, this person that have self-esteem issues will want to like use, for example, clothes as a way of making themselves feel better, you know. Uh, or they will also be using, for example, makeup for that, or they will be using some kind of person for that, maybe in a relationship, to validate to them that they are pretty or something like that, or maybe they will be posting on social media to validate that, or really it can be anything, which is also one of the videos I wanted to make some time ago about how we, for example, laugh at the girls that post on the social media, oh, I'm so ugly, to get the comments, oh, you're not, and but actually we don't notice that we are doing exactly the same thing. Like, most of the people are doing the exact same thing, not about the self-esteem, not about the looks always, and not in the social media hours, but we actually do it all the time subconsciously in our lives. And I feel like it's important to notice those behaviors when you look before validation. uh, and notice that certain behaviors in our life we don't do uh, for ourselves out of freedom of choice, but we actually do it for ego and for validating ourselves and looking for validation, which again is not always wrong. But when it comes to ego and certain behaviors, it can be toxic. It can limit us in a lot of ways um, from doing what we really want and moving forward in life or with our personal growth, uh, which I lately been noticing in myself, and I'm trying to work on that. That is a very interesting topic I wanted to share. So whoever is watching this video, I hope you can like reflect if you're looking for validation in your life in certain ways, which is of course not everyone is doing it in such a way, for example, as writing on social media and something like that, or like saying stuff. But for example, you might be in a relationship and you get into a fight, um, and you might look in a validation in a sense of saying, for example, oh, if you don't want to be with me that much, then you can just break up with me, stuff like that. So you, for example, seek for the validation of they wanting to be still with you or something like that. It can really be in a different ways. It doesn't have to be in a relationship. It doesn't have to be, in that way. But mostly we look for validation in people around us. Um, and sadly, I also noticed that we are not always looking for that validation in right people, because sometimes that validation is important. Let me tell you, it is sometimes important to get that validation, because if not, we'll just keep beating ourselves up, especially if it doesn't come from ego, but like, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about ego, but there are, of course, type of validation where it is necessary, it is healthy to ask for it, but it's important to recognize it's about balance, it's about intuitive, picking about what is healthy, what is not healthy for me, what am I doing out of ego, what am I doing out of purely, seeking for answers or something like that. So yeah, that's something else I wanted to talk about looking for validation, because I feel like it's a way of freeing ourselves from looking for this validation and actually living our lives. Um, also not have to seek constantly for this validation that we are actually looking for, because we don't get it inside of ourselves, so we look for it constantly around us, you know. That's what kind of validation I mean, the one that is probably based on traumas and stuff like that. Um, but let me get to the point, which I was trying to make earlier. Um, so that person which has like a lower self-esteem will look for that validation later on, you know, in the clothes and the makeup, stuff like that. And it works with everything, not only with low self-esteem. It can literally be about anything, and it's personal because it's based on everyone's own experience with life and traumas and stuff like that. So for example, some people might use telekinesis only as a tool for validating themselves. They actually don't are not interested in the activity in itself. They are focusing on the feeling they try to gain from it. So instead of someone internally validating themselves and working on it and growing through it, through working on their own issues and traumas, they will try to like escape from it, from constantly looking for validation in the outside of them, which is of course it will of course not rarely be the case, and after that person will get that thing, they will be simply not fulfilled, because for example for me, a telekinesis, it's not about that, it's about purely activity and learning from it, so it's always fulfilling for me, and not the result of it, but actually just simply doing it in the process, you know. So it itself gives me fulfillment, and the person who will try to do telekinesis only to, you know, gain something from it, they will not be happy with the process. They will spend weeks learning it only to wait for a result, because they are hoping to get from like some kind of satisfaction. And it's I notice that it's really toxic sometimes with some people. They might be using it as a way of feeling better than others, as a way of you know, uh, rising up their self-esteem, you know, as a way of really, you know, like being popular or famous, or I love it, uh, which is not the case. And again, I don't necessarily feel like at the end of the day it's not a terrible thing, but what I mean is that it's important for someone who wants to grow and develop themselves and really reflect on themselves, and really like someone who just simply want to grow as a person, to realize those behaviors and uh, get kind of out of a trap of a mind, where you're doing everything just to validate yourself and your ego, because it's not the way of living. So no, it's I don't think like it's terrible or wrong, but I just want to anyone who's watching this video to, you know, reflect on that and see if is it really valuable to do all of those things. Telekinesis really now, you know, like anything it can be, any activities that you do. Is it really valuable to do it just out of validating yourself and your ego? Is it really the way you wanna live? You know, is it really freedom? Is it really um, a productive spend of your time? You know, to live your life by validating your ego, you know, and stuff like that. You know, for example, also revenge is because we wanna just uh, feel that satisfaction of getting that person what they deserve, because they did that to us, and we have to like show our strength and how we are better for than them, and that we just want to pay it back for to them, you know, which is also a form of validation. Anything can be a form of validation, really, but yeah, I think what the point I'm trying to make is basically ask yourself, why are you doing certain stuff, like why are you saying certain stuff. It's not only about activities, it's about also, you know, how you feel, what you're saying, how do you communicate with people, how those behaviors you can like they are coming out. Because sometimes, you know, listen, every feeling is valid, but not every feeling is coming from what is the actual situation, you know. Let me visualize it for you. How do I should say it? For example, okay, for example, someone is not someone you care about is not writing back for a certain time, and when you feel bad and when you're like, oh my god, this person is ignoring me, this person is no longer interested in me, I feel bad about it, you know, they shouldn't be ignoring me, and when you blame it on them and you say like, hey listen, it makes me feel bad, please like respond to me when you can or something like that, but actually it's not the situation that made you feel bad, it's actually what it triggered, you know. uh, which is for example, in the past people were like, you know, ignoring you or losing interest fast, and this situation just triggered that feeling from it. Doesn't mean that the person is not interested in you or ignoring you, it just means that that situation when they were, for example, busy in doing something, just triggered you emotionally and gave you that feeling to the surface where you feel like this person doesn't care about you anymore, which is actually not their fault and not your either. Let me make that clear. It's just we have to, it's really complex. Listen, I've been into spirituality for a long time, into psychology, stuff like that, and I still definitely don't know anything about it. Well, anything is a strong word. I mean, I don't know everything about it, um, but I'm trying to share my observations and what I got so far. Um, yeah, and it's a really complex thing with the mind. It's really literally a program, you know, running in your head, uh, in your behaviors. So it's really important that we notice the stuff that sometimes the situation uh, that we're in is not exactly what it is, and it's just the point is that it triggers a certain feeling or memory in us. And situations are, certain situations are not actually bad, they are just reminding us of something, and that's why it hurts us. You know, of course it's not the point with everything, I'm just saying to pay attention and ask yourself where is this a case. Because sometimes we, for example, sometimes it's also important because I've been dealing with it, I've been feeling very bad about something, and I was like asking myself like, why do I feel bad about it? Because the more I was thinking about it, the more it didn't make sense, because uh, I was trying to, I was seeing the situation clearly, what was happening, and then because once you break out of ego, you start to question your behaviors and stuff. And once I was in the situation, I didn't just go blindly into it. I was asking myself, why do I feel bad about it? Because the more I started thinking about it, the less sense it started to make, because the situation that was in front of me and my feeling were not aligning. Like, sure, there was a trigger, but the rest of the situation is completely not there. Like, I'm feeling bad about nothing, right? So there has to be something about it. So usually in those situations where you don't have physical proof for something and we feel bad about it, of course in certain cases, again, we have to think intuitively about the stuff. Um, it's time to ask ourselves like, why do we feel bad about it? Is it the situation itself, or is it just a trigger for a certain memory and something, certain trauma that happened to us in the past, and it just triggers it? And I feel like we, if someone is having enough courage, they should actually face this feeling. But I also understand that not a lot of people are ready for certain stuff. But I feel like it's important that we are at least aware of that, and whenever we feel like we can face it, we should face it and really ask about why does it hurt us, and think about memories, about the feelings that it brought, you know, because sometimes we get really upset and we blame it for a person or a situation, which is not always fair. Um, when actually the situation is just a trigger, you know. In the rest of the situation, we just write our own scenarios based on the past or on the trauma. And sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes what is happening is not the case. But I mostly notice it with a thing where it doesn't have any realistic base for it in reality. It's just something that was said. It can be literally little thing, and you will notice it in the little things when it doesn't make sense. But we also do it in a bigger situation where it seems like we have a realistic proof, but actually there's no realistic proof at all, and we're just getting upset about the trigger from the past or something like that, right? So that's why I think like it's important that we reflect on our past and the traumas and hurt that happened to us, because it's basically what programmed us, and made us look for a certain validation in our life, and I don't think that's a way of living freely. That's what I mean. And I feel like whoever is watching it, just reflect on your behavior, reflect if you're looking for validation and stuff. uh, and of course my first point, if you're interested in manifestation, then we shouldn't focus on money, we should focus on the destination where we want to get, it's about the feeling. So for example, for me, money itself doesn't bring me much feeling. What brings me feeling is what I can get for this money, which again, money doesn't have to be a way of getting this thing, you know. For example, someone lives in a house, and they want to have money so they can move out, be independent, and so they look at money. But actually, the case is the house. And what is the case in the house? Well, independence. What does independence mean for someone? Well, freedom. Well, so we should like put those things into those kind of categories, and going from reflect on things and go from one point to what is actually the middle of it and the whole point of it, why we do the certain stuff and why we focus on certain stuff, because we are complicated, okay? It's important that we focus on the things we want and why we want them, because sometimes they are not worth it, because sometimes they are just for validation and for our ego, you know. So sometimes, for example, you don't really want to be in a relationship, you actually want to be in a relationship for how to explain, wait, okay, so someone wants to be in a relationship not because they want to create the connection with someone, but actually because they want to, for example, have the validation that they are not, for example, unworthy of being with someone, or they look for validation that they are pretty enough to be with someone, you know. It's not actually about connecting to someone and creating a relationship with them. It's not about the person that you want to build connection with. It's purely about the idea of relationship with someone, and purely the idea that by relationship you will prove something or validate something. So yeah, I probably give too much examples, and that video is 50 minutes long. So anyways, I just wanted to give a quick thought, and then 20 minutes later. Anyways, so I hope this helps someone. I hope you will reflect on this. I hope I brought something into someone's attention. Because I feel like it's very important to improve ourselves by noticing certain stuff and behaviors, which of course again it's not gonna be easy, because ego sometimes, especially in bad forms and that deep, we're gonna defend ourselves, okay? I've been there. We're gonna defend ourselves. We're not gonna want to go there. We're not gonna want to be aware of it. We're gonna defend it how we can, because it's a way of survival for us, you know. So it's important also that in the first place we feel safe and discussing the stuff about the stuff with ourselves, you know. Be honest with ourselves with the stuff. So yeah, but I really believe like everyone can do this and everyone is capable of doing that, and also because I said like it's survival. Survival, because it actually comes from something that hurted us, something that injured us in a way, you know. So that, I think it's something important to realize, that ego is there for a reason. Like beliefs we have are there for a reason, because we got hurt and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean they are true. It doesn't mean that if someone cheated on you, you're gonna get cheated by everyone everywhere. It's a belief, so we have to realize that. But it's also important that we don't ignore all the dangers. It's about intuition, about being really intuitive with stuff, and being able to don't only listen to me, don't only listen to people, don't only create those knowledge bases and stuff like that. Just I'm only giving you knowledge. Only reflect on it in your own world. You know, it's important that we focus on intuition, not on knowledge. We have to focus on what is we think is right. Focus on, because everyone is different, okay? And what I'm saying here, I don't want you perceive it in a sense like all validation is bad or something, or like whenever you see a sense of validation in yourself in a situation that is bad, or you have to like apologize or something or stop it. But because it's not the case, it's simply not the case, because as I said, sometimes validation is important. Sometimes validation gives us something valuable, you know. That's why it's important that we realize that we have to pick intuitively what makes sense and what doesn't, and what is healthy for us and what doesn't, what is a waste of our time and what isn't, you know. So trust yourself, okay, because that is most important in all of it. Trust yourself, not your ego, yourself, okay. And trust yourself enough to decide what is good for you and what is not, and what to not suppress stuff that has to be resolved inside of you, because even if it's hard, it has to be done at some point. You know, it's not a fulfilling life when we live based on our beliefs, which are based on hurt and traumas. Um, it's not gonna give us fulfilling life. It's only a survival in such way. So thank you for watching, I guess, if you got so far. If anyone got, yeah, I hope it was valuable. I am open for discussion and comments. I am open for people commenting. I would really like to know your opinion on those stuff. If you have something to add, that is absolutely okay. That would be perfectly, just perfect, wonderful. I feel like we all need like different perspectives on stuff, and because of course I didn't say all of the perspectives in this video. I'm only taking about one perspective on stuff, about only something I was inspired to say. It's definitely not all there is. So yeah, I wish everyone to grow and develop into better version of themselves. Peace. Thanks for watching.